This week, All Up in Your Business podcast had the honor of speaking with therapist Tracie Pinnock. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist located in Norwalk, Connecticut. Her focus is on doing individual therapy with women and couples, navigating through various life transitions. Welcome, Tracie.
Dr. Pinnock, how are you this evening?
I'm good. It's just Tracie is fine.
Yeah, just Tracie? Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you for that, Tracie.
She said, "Don't go out there and start with the doctor.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Just a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take this doctor. I'm gonna say, Dr. Tracie. Because we try to make sure that we set it up. It's good.
So I want to thank you for joining us this evening for this podcast. One, we greatly appreciate it. We know that my sister and I, as we started this journey, looking into mental health and just talking about how we've kind of progressed in our relationship with each other and our families. We knew it was going to be kind of a challenge, so that because people were going to get to a place where they wanted to know who we were and what we were about. And so we want to thank you for just having the courage to come on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So when we spoke previously, just a brief introduction, our screen names and our real names. I'm Lisa and this is William, but we're light and lovely.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm lovely now. Okay.
Light and lovely. But no, like when I was explaining to you, we met when we were 18 and 15. We are connected through our father, and we just over time we've tried to stay connected. And as we've gotten older and our kids are older, we were able to meet more. And every time we hook up and we talk to each other, it's like another thing that's just so similar that it's creepy. Like some days, I mean, we're like, 4 days apart. It's just,
wow.
3 years, 4 days.
Right.
2 years, 4 days.
Yeah. But, so in our quest to kind of find closure on some things and understand ourselves better, we decided we were going to start the podcast because we wanted to connect with each other, but we wanted to journal what we were doing. And also we knew that there were people out there just like us who had similar events happen in their lives. And we wanted to get feedback, and we just felt we're really service people.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that drew me to this process of mental health over the years, and I like to write poetry, so I would journal my emotions through poetry, and in the process of doing so and reading a lot of books and studying, when Lisa and I would, or when Lovely and I would talk, my part.
No, you can call me whatever you want. When
Lovely and I would talk, when we would sit down to kind of have conversations, there are certain people you meet where you have that imaginary light go on in your head, and it's like, man, it's true, not because she's saying it, it's true because I consider truth something, a principle that is applicable to all people at all times, and it kind of uplifts everyone. No one feels neglected. No one feels like they're being left behind. If the principle is applied, it elevates you and it elevates the people around you. So when we would talk, she would say things that I would believe that would be like, that's like very enlightening and something that I could apply or something that I could buy into. And so for me, this journey into mental health and wanting to speak to different individuals was because I wanted to start the podcast because in talking to different individuals, one of the things that I would notice is we have a lot of programs in Baltimore City. We have a lot of programs in a lot of urban places, and we would still wonder why we still see some of the residual problems happening in children and the people who these programs were servicing. And one of the things that I would tell people, I said, we all too often leave off the mental health perspective of what it is that the environments that they're growing up in. And even though you're providing nice things for them or even nice activities, you're still neglecting the core of who they are. You cannot be whole as a human being without having your mental health and mental well-being looked into. And so for me, it was like, let's start a conversation. And we're not going to pretend to be therapists, but what we're going to do is approach it from a peer-to-peer type of situation, because it's like, this is what we went through, and growing up in environments, two separate environments, coming together, you know, me discovering I had a sister in the 18th year of my life, and then seeing how she grew up, and knowing what the impact that our missing dad had on her life, but it was different for her because he was trying to be in your life. And, you know, what his neglect and total disregard for my humanity did for me. When we started to talk about that, we didn't want to talk about it as if we were victims. We wanted to talk about it from an empowered sense of
mental well-being.
Look at us. Look at who we are. Look at what we decided to become. Not because we just were persevering and gutting it out. We actually addressed the things that were going on inside of us. And when we would get together, you know, throughout the years after we met, it would be to, you know, to discuss, you know, our emotions, our feelings, and then our progression. So we kind of helped each other get better as we were walking through this journey. But that's kind of what started the podcast, and we just been running with it ever since then.
That's awesome. That's great.
So where you kick in, where you fit in, is we wanted to also address the stigma of mental health in the community, because I think so many times when you say therapy in a Black community, it's like you should have just cursed at someone's mom, you know, you've blasphemy, you know, you've gone against the church. And it's not even that. It's
or
just,
you don't want people to think something is,
or people just think that something's wrong with you, and yet that's the label that you receive for the rest of the time you're there. But like I said to you, therapy saved me because I needed that. I needed permission to be angry. I had questions about how to react to certain events in my life, and I think that when you have a good sounding board, somebody that you trust, it really does help out. And what we found through the different conversations we've had with people is that they want to see people that look like them.
Right.
You know, they would feel comfortable sitting down and talking to you because they don't feel like you would be judging them from an outsider's point of view. So, yes. So with that, we want to again welcome you to the podcast and just ask you about your background and what made you decide to become a therapist.
Yes, how about that? Talk about your journey.
Yes. So, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, which just kind of puts me in line with clinical social workers and licensed professional counselors. We all kind of do the same things. We're master's levels clinicians, as opposed to a psychologist who may have gone for a PhD, or a psychiatrist who has who is able to prescribe medication. That's just something that I like to point out, because I think sometimes there's confusion around those different roles.
Say that once again, because that's a good point to make, because I think there is confusion around what the difference between what you do, the psychologist, and the psychiatrist.
Right. So technically all of those professions can provide therapy, but a psychiatrist can prescribe medication, where a psychologist, marriage and family therapist, licensed clinical social worker, professional counselor do not prescribe medication. So for instance, when I work with clients who do need or want medication, I try to help them find a psychiatrist or an APRN who can prescribe the medication to them. So they'll see me for the therapy, see the psychiatrist for the prescription for the medication. And oftentimes it looks like, it depends on your needs, but it oftentimes can look like them checking in with their psychiatrist monthly, and they would come see me weekly or so. And so like the idea of doctor would be used with like a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whereas master's level clinicians, so people who've gone as far as getting their master's degree in therapy, would, I'm Tracie, like I tell you all, I'm Tracie. But yeah, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so, yeah, I have a private practice in Norwalk, Connecticut, which is Fairfield County, Connecticut, more of the southern part of Connecticut, not too far from New York. And I work with women and couples. I also work with teenage girls as well. But I'm really working on narrowing my focus more and more so that I can really devote my time and energy to clients who I feel I work the best with. My background, though, is in working with all ages. There was a point where I was doing play therapy with very young children under the age of 6 years old, in-home therapy, all of these things, which I loved. And I think play therapy is amazing. But I also have a 4-year-old and now a 3.5-month-old. And so,
Congratulations.
thank you. I was noticing that in doing a lot of play during the day for therapy, I was just completely like burnt out with the play when I got home to, to my own son. And I was just like, okay, I have to narrow this down a bit. So I really love working with women and couples. I love working with, I work with a number of different, ethnicities and races in my practice, but I really am passionate about destigmatizing mental health in the Black community. So working with, Black women and Black couples is really important to me because of exactly some of the things you guys said. There's this idea of like, I've had people come in and sit down and say, well, I didn't want to come here because this is for crazy people.
Yes.
And, there's also, the whole strong Black woman, idea as well. So you're strong, you don't need that. There's the idea of we don't tell our problems and our issues to other people. There's, all of these different stigmas. And the sad part about it is it keeps us from getting the help that we need and the help that we deserve. So then we end up getting pushed to the outskirts in terms of getting access to, emotional healing and, mental healing. And it's just not fair to us. So I'm big on helping people realize that therapy is for any and everyone. And though it oftentimes is something that's looked to during times of crisis, it doesn't have to be just when someone is in crisis. Like it can be a preventative and proactive thing. And just as a society overall, that's something that we're needing to get better at, is being preventative about our mental health. I always say you go to the doctors for physicals to be on top of things. And if you break your leg, nobody's telling you to put a Band-Aid on it and just chill out. You go to the doctor. Like,
who does that?
Right? So it's like, no, really, mental and emotional health is the same idea. If you let emotional wounds fester, it's like letting a physical wound fester that gets infected and doesn't heal properly. And so I just think it's so important that we all realize and understand this.
Honey, we are just getting started. Come back soon to hear more of this interview with Tracie. Peace.